Hello, good evening, and thanks for joining us. My name is Melissa Poston, and I am the children's buyer at The Novel Neighbor, a full service independent bookstore in St. Louis, Missouri. And tonight, I am so happy to be hosting the launch event for Julie Buxbaum's Year on Fire, which comes out tomorrow. But before we get started, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Julie and her conversation partner, Nicola Yoon, and then I'll bring them on to chat and we'll have some time for questions at the end. Okay, so Julie is the New York Times bestselling author of the young adult novels Tell Me Three Things, What to Say Next, Hope and Other Punchlines, and Admission. She also wrote the critically acclaimed The Opposite of Love and After You. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband and 2 children. You can visit her online at juliebuxbaum.com and follow her on Twitter at JulieBUX and on Instagram at JulieBuxbaum. Nicola Yoon is the author of the #1 New York Times bestsellers The Sun is Also a Star and Everything, Everything, both of which have been turned into major motion pictures. She grew up in Jamaica and Brooklyn and lives in Los Angeles with her husband, novelist David Yoon, and their daughter. She's also a hopeless romantic and who firmly believes that you can fall in love in an instant and have it last forever. Visit Nicola online at nicolayoon.com and follow at Nicola Yoon on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's bring them back on right now.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, world. Hello, Julie Buxbaum.
Hello, Nikki. Are you still on Tumblr for real?
No, I'm not. I was just gonna be like, no more Tumblr. That was way back in the day, right? Were you on Tumblr?
I signed up and then didn't understand it and then logged off because I'm old. But I want to add that you also wrote Instructions for Dancing, which is your latest book, which is so good and so like squee.
No, you were
That's
sweet.
not really an adjective, but you know what I mean.
No, it's fine. So, Julie, it's almost launch day. Tell me how you're feeling. Is this fear, Lacey?
It's such a weird thing because everyone's always like, are you really excited for the book to come out? And I am. Like, I cannot wait till Wednesday for it to be out and then it belongs to readers. Like, I really do believe once you have a book come out, like it no longer belongs to you. It's not mine anymore. And you hand it off and then it does what it does and it's out of my control. But there's something about the lead up to that letting go. I guess it's sort of like when your kids go off to college and like you're so nervous and you don't know how it's going to feel. And then they leave and then it's probably horrible. But the point is, it's a terrible comparison. I get really anxious before book launch. I don't know what it is.
No, I mean, I think it's like, I think everyone does, like all my writer friends, like if you're not a writer, you think it seems really exciting, but if you are publishing a book, it's terrible. I'm sorry, but launch day is miserable. Like, and the week leading up to it, it sucks. Like, I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's certain personalities who really do enjoy being the center of attention. And maybe if I liked people looking at me, it would feel different. Like it would feel like, oh yeah, I get to celebrate. Like, but I don't have birthday parties. I had a very small wedding. Like, I do not enjoy knowing that eyes are on me. I mean, I love talking about the book and I love interacting with readers and I love answering questions about it and explaining the work. But the idea of like it being about me and my book feels weird. Like, I'd much rather us be on a big panel with other people to sort of take the focus off of me.
Well, I mean, for me, it's just, you're just so nervous about is everyone going to hate it is basically the question in my head. Like, everyone's going to talk about it now and they're going to hate it. That's just where I am always.
So interesting. I'm not even worried about people hating it because it's like some books people like and some books they don't. Like, it doesn't even feel personal to me.
Yeah.
So it's not even about that. I already feel like there's always a verdict before the book comes out anyway, right? Like, you see good read, you get reader reaction.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe there's the expectation that comes along with it. Like, I don't know. It feels, I don't know. Anyhow, let's move on.
Anyway, so launch day's tomorrow. All right, Julie, I am going to ask you some questions about your book, but I'm not going to ask you too many because I don't want spoilers. And I'm going to ask you about writing and then we're going to do the famed Proust questionnaire.
Okay.
And for everyone in the audience, we love questions. It's our favorite part, or it's my favorite part. I think it's Julie's too, of these events. So just ask away, because we never know what we're going to hear. And generally we hear new questions, and it's always sort of a great interactive experience. All right,
Well,
Julie.
Like you never know what I'm going to say too.
Keeps you on your toes, Julie. Julie? Here.
I see you. Do you see me?
You're frozen for me. Am I frozen for you?
No, you're reloaded.
I can't
frozen for everybody.
Okay.
Oh shoot. Do you want me to? Should I go out and come back? No one can see me. Okay.
Oh dear. Okay. We're going to wait for Julie to come back. In the meantime,
I'm
chat
coming
with
back.
me.
Yes, here
you are.
I left and came back. Sorry. I don't know what happened. Oh my God. Now you're frozen.
Really?
Okay. Now you're moving. All right. Maybe we're
okay. All right. Here we go, Julie. All right. Julie, give us the pitch for Year on Fire.
Okay. So it's so funny. I haven't talked about this book at all yet, which is the other reason why launch is so hard. I forgot about that part. Yeah. Okay. So Year on Fire. So with my previous books, I've always been obsessed with those moments in life where like you wake up in one world and you go to sleep in another, right? Like those pivotal moments that fundamentally change who we are. So in Tell Me Three Things, it's when the main character loses her mother. In What to Say Next, there's a car accident. In Hope and Other Punchlines, it's 9/11. In Admission, it starts with the main character's mom getting arrested, right? These huge, momentous things, but they're all terrible, awful things. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have something be life-changing, but for a change, have it be something fantastic?
Yeah.
So it occurred to me that like, it would be really cool to write a book in which it's a kiss, like a 10-second, life-shattering, earth-altering kiss that fundamentally changes a group of friends' lives. And that sort of was the kernel that sort of, became Year on Fire. So that's where I started.
Right. And so then Year on Fire has 4 POVs, which I wrote a book with 2 in The Sun Is Also a Star, and that was difficult enough. Talk to me about writing 4 POVs and keeping them straight in your head and, getting the voices right.
Yeah, I mean, so close really helped. As I think if it was, am I frozen again?
Yeah, you were frozen. I didn't hear what you said.
Should I move maybe?
Are you connected to Wi-Fi or are you connected to?
I'm on Wi-Fi and I have all my bars.
Okay, but you're fine now, so go ahead.
Okay, all right. If I freeze again, I'll move. You guys can see another less curated part of my house. So anyhow, for the 4 POVs. So it's all third person close. And so I didn't have to worry about distinguishing the voices as clearly. Instead, I had to worry about distinguishing the characters, which I think comes naturally, right? Because they are 4 distinct characters.
Yeah.
It was my first time not writing in first person, which was really interesting. And in some ways, it is so much easier to write in third person, which I didn't know. And the reason why I think it's easier is because I think a lot of the time when I'm writing in first person, I'm telling 2 stories, right? I'm telling the story that the character is saying to the reader. Right. And then I'm telling the story that the character doesn't understand yet, but I want the reader to know, right? And I have to write on 2 levels. But in third person, you kind of just say it for the most part. You don't have to disconnect. I think the trade-off, though, is like an intimacy that you have with first person. And so I feel like it depends on the story you're telling, what like each story demands a certain tense and a certain perspective. And this book, because I was telling the story about this one thing that had a fundamental impact on a larger group of people, I had no choice but to go third person.
Right. I feel like there's like there's like a third person close and like the sort of standard third person that is a little bit removed, like the sort of God narrator. And I'm writing something right now and it's third person super close, right? So sometimes when I get stuck, what I do is just write it in first person and then switch it. Like if I'm like stuck and like I feel like the emotion's not coming through, I literally just will like, I'll just write this whole page and then I'll turn it around. And it works out because I want to be closer. And then I'm working on something else, which is just like very distant and godlike, which I never have to do the trick of switching for.
Right. And when you do the trick of switching, do you find that it gets you as close as you need to be? Like, is it as close as the person?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it does because then, you can just say it. That's the thing that I have been like finding. You can just say the thing, right? Like readers will make the leap. Like you as the author, you're like, I don't know. But then when I read it back, I go, oh, and people do this all the time. You just make the leap with them. Like you just say the thing and then it's there.
Right, which is what third person does. That first person doesn't, right? Like the first person, the character can't say the thing because none of us know ourselves that clearly, right?
Yeah. Well, so you're like one of these like meta, self-aware, like, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And those voices are kind of annoying, especially in YA, because you're like,
you can only do it for a little bit.
You can read, you can hear the Goodreads review in your head before you even write it. Like, this is not how teenagers talk or think. And you're like, ah.
Whatever. Goodreads is terrible. We all know this. So one of the things I love about your books and love about you, Julie, is that you're really funny. And this is actually funny too. And I cannot write funny. So tell me, how do you do this? How do you write funny? And do you make yourself laugh while you're writing?
Yes, I do sometimes. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think that life is really funny. I have never experienced anything. Even the darkest moments of my life, some of the funniest moments of my life. And I actually think the dark is where the funny is generally. And that's not always. Like I wrote, my next book is a middle grade Area 51 files. And that's funny is like, fart jokes. It's a totally different kind of funny. But I feel like the funny comes from the dark.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's where like feel the most. And you have to balance the feel. Am I frozen again?
You got a little bit wonky again.
But am I back?
The sound was cutting out, but now you're back. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like holding like how it freezes if I'm like, handling you in some very anyhow. It's back to funny. Yeah, I don't know. I just have always, that's how I see the world. I mean, I think there's no joy. I like it. It gives me joy to laugh. And when I'm writing, it just comes. I never try to be funny. I think when you try to be funny is when it's not funny.
It like just fails. I think sometimes when I read people who are trying to be funny, it's just too many words. Like they don't trust the reader to like get the joke, so that they over explain it and then they do it again and they do it again. I'm just like, and when I try to be funny, David fixes it. My husband fixes it for me because he'll like read the manuscript and he was like, you have killed your own joke. Please get rid of these 3 lines.
You know what's the most interesting place to see it? I happen to write a lot of eulogies for people. I know it sounds weird, but when anyone, again, if I have a very close friend or family member who has to give a eulogy for someone else, they always send it to me to clean up.
Oh, really? Wait, why, Julie? Why?
Because I'm a writer, right? And they need help. Okay. They need help with giving their speech. Yeah. And it's always a collection of anecdotes that are funny about the person, because I know funny people and they like to tell funny stories in their eulogies. Yeah. But there are always too many words. You're exactly right. And the thing I do to change it is I don't really fundamentally change anything. I just change the rhythm of how they deliver their talk. And it makes such a difference. And so I feel like that's a really good exercise, actually, is to write a eulogy. Like if I was ever a writing teacher, I'd be like, write an anecdote for a eulogy and then, make it funnier. Give it.
Yeah, no, that's a great exercise. I think, Julie, this is a talking point for your next presentation. That's really good.
Next time I talk in the writing program, I will give that tip.
No, seriously.
You're hearing it free, folks.
Okay, so your first 2 novels were for adults. Mm-hmm. And what do you see as the primary difference between writing for young adults and writing for adults? Or do you see there is a difference? And are you tired of answering this question?
I am not tired of answering this question. I don't think the process is fundamentally different. Like the experience for me as a writer in writing them feels no different. I think the biggest change is middle grade, actually. Middle grade feels fundamentally different to me in a way that
Yeah.
YA and adult together do not. Um, the biggest difference, I think, is in my adult, they tend to run longer. And so I have more B, C, and D stories. And
Okay.
in my YA, I tend to keep it a little bit narrower. And I don't curse as much, to be honest. I have to feel like I earn my curses in
Mhm.
YA, and on the adult side, I don't. I just let it fly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as an adult, those words sound different to an experienced ear versus a younger ear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the topics are different, right? Like the experience. I mean, we've talked about this a million times, how the experience of being a teenager is so similar.
Oh,
Why writers write YA. Am I frozen again? All right, I'm moving.
yeah. Okay.
We're going on a walk.
I think you
All
might
right.
have to repeat like a little part of that answer because I missed it.
You know what the great tragedy of me walking is?
What?
I lose my ring light.
You're okay, but I can hear you now, so that's good.
You can't see me?
No, I can't. No, I can't. I can see you. I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, let me take down some of these books. Okay.
God,
I
technology.
look so much better with the ring light.
I'm sorry, Julie. You want to go get it?
No, because then you'll see my pajamas. I can't win.
All right. Oh, you're frozen again.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, now you're back.
Okay.
Okay. So curse words and narrow story. Anything
Yes.
else?
No, I think that's it. I think the way I was explaining why curse words are different, and it's not just because librarians don't like to stock books with lots of curse words for
Yeah.
teenagers. I think that it sounds different to the teenage ear, and
Yeah.
you're writing to an ear. And so I think when I write adult stuff and I curse, it sounds different to a mature ear than it does to a 17-year-old or
Yeah.
maybe even a 18-year-old.
I was talking about it with my husband too, because he's written a couple of books for adults now. Like one is coming out in May. And we're saying that there's like a different type of hope. Like I think adult books you can have an end on hope or it can be hopeless. But I think most young adult books end on a hopeful note, even if they're dealing with like dire topics. There's always a little bit of hope in there because everyone is so young and there's like still the whole world ahead of them, potentially a whole life ahead of them. But I mean, I've read some bleak adult books, right? There is no hope necessarily in them. And I feel like YA doesn't do that as often.
I feel like adulthood is just a little bleaker. Let's be honest. Though actually that's not true. I was actually thinking today that I am so much happier being my age than being a teenager.
Yeah.
And I think, am I frozen again? Are you kidding
me?
No,
you're fine now. No, you're good. Okay. Yeah.
I was I'm like, I'm giving up the ring light, Nikki. Yeah, I feel like those teenage years when you're so hungry for experience, and I think that hunger can be really scary. I mean, I think that's one of the things that You're on Fire is about, and why it's called You're on Fire is I think teenagers have this fire in them and this hunger for life, which is what I think is so attractive about them and so interesting. But it's also really scary at the time not to understand your own appetites.
Yeah.
And so I'm so happy not to be in that place anymore, but I love to sort of dig into it.
Right. I was like out with my husband recently and we saw this couple on a date and it like wasn't going that well. And I was just like, oh, thank God. I will never have to go on a date, like a first date ever again. I could not like re-experience it.
I bet you want to write about a first date again so you can re-experience it in the this way possible, right?
Right, yeah, because it's distant. That's not me. Like I'm all set. But as a teenager, I had appetites, but I was so shy. I was so not in the world. I basically read in my house. So I think I am happier now too, because I'm more, in the world and like I want things and I'm okay with wanting things, even though it's hard to want things, like it is still scary to want things.
I mean, it's the human condition to want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're in the perfect bathtub, you're like, oh, I would like it to be 2 degrees warmer, right? There's always, or I wish there was a wine glass in my hand. Like, there's always something.
Right. I always
Um,
want like a self-pouring like bottle of wine. Like I don't have to do anything. I want magic. I want magical powers, Julie, is
I
what I
know.
want.
You know what
Yeah.
magical power I would use right now?
What?
I'd put the ring light right there.
Go get the ring light. Go get it.
Oh, I can't because I have to plug it in, and but it's better than Botox, I swear. All right, go ahead.
All right.
Maybe
So,
some more questions.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your writing process?
It's so funny. I used to have a process pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
and that process doesn't exist anymore. And
What's
it makes
the
me
process?
So my process was I had an office. There was a writing space 4 blocks from my house called the Hatchery. You have been.
I remember the Hatchery, yeah.
And I would get up in the morning, get my kids to school, maybe exercise, and then I would walk over to the Hatchery and spend my day there and write. And then I put Freedom on, which is that program that
Yes,
locks.
I love that. I love
Yes.
Freedom. Yep.
That's like the best. That's the only tip I'm going to give today for an aspiring writer is get Freedom. And it blocks the internet for chunks of time. And so I would write for a chunk of time, and then I'd mess around on the internet, and then I'd write for a chunk of time, and then mess around, et cetera, until 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock when I went home to my kids.
Yeah.
Now I don't have that office space. The Hatchery closed.
Yeah.
A new place opened up nearby, but I'm feeling weird with the pandemic. Do I have to work in a mask? Do I take off the mask? And it feels, I don't know, it adds a level of anxiety to the working life.
That's not really great for writing, honestly.
Yes, exactly. Like you don't want to add anything different. Are you like that? I need to be in the same place with the same mug. Like I need routine. I need ritual.
Yeah, I generally need to be alone. Like it's weird. I feel self-conscious. And I'm also just gross when I'm writing. Like I'm just a mess. Like I'm like mouthing things. I'm like talking to myself and picturing things. Like no one wants to be around me then.
Yeah, I make weird faces, definitely. But having the Hatchery made me put on pants, which was a really nice thing.
Yeah.
And I find that I do not have the concentration I used to. My family's away right now, and the other day I had like 3 hours of work time, and I got more done in those 3 hours than I have in at least a month. Because I had this like sort of tunnel focus that even the internet wasn't interesting to me. Like I was not distracted at all. And so I do realize
that was because you were alone, or what do you think that is?
I think it's 100% because I was alone, because there's no one yelling from the next room asking me a question.
Julie, you're frozen again.
Oh my God.
No, you're back now.
So annoyed. I don't understand. Did I just go back to the ring light because I'm frozen anyway?
Well, it's a little more stable than before, so.
I don't understand. There's no other place to go, but okay. Sorry.
Right. So you were 3 hours alone and you got more done.
Yes. And I do think it's because I was alone. I think it's because my husband is not calling from the next room. Like, hey, where's the scissors? Are we out of milk? What are we doing next Saturday? I can go through it.
So is he working from home during the pandemic as well?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So in my house, like David writes in a chair and I write in my office. I don't know how I scored the office, but I did. And I basically sit on my couch. There's a lot of coffee and I make faces and I'm gross. But we don't, we meet for lunch in the kitchen, and then we go on until we have to go. I pick Pen up because David takes her to school.
Okay.
During the day.
I don't know. Indy, my husband, for the people who don't know him, though I feel like everyone who's here probably does. And I don't know if he's actually watching because he's far away right now, but, and he's going to be mad. So I'm going to tell the story anyway. He has this to walk around the house and talk on the phone very loudly, as if he's like peeing all over the house to like mark his territory. And so he's in the office and he doesn't just take up the space of the office. He takes up the space of the whole house. And I'm upstairs in like this little IKEA table in the corner of our bedroom. And I close the door and it's still not enough. Like I can hear him. Stop breathing.
One of those friends is in an office. one of my friends rents an office for that very same reason.
Oh my God, we're frozen again.
A friend of mine gets up every day and puts on full makeup and everything, goes into her office.
Oh, we're frozen. I don't know if I'm frozen for you.
Am I frozen?
You were frozen for a second, but now you're back. And now you're
This is
frozen.
odd. Are you good? Can you see me now?
I can see you now. Yeah.
Okay.
I like
you
how we
were-
move our heads to make it clear we're not frozen.
Right, because you never know. All right. Let's see. Julie, have
Yes.
you always wanted to be a writer?
No.
And if you weren't writing, what would you be doing?
Realistically, I would be a lawyer because I was a lawyer before I was a writer. Though I hope I would be a different kind of lawyer than I was before I quit to become a writer.
What kind were you before?
I was a big corporate lawyer. Basically, I worked for large law firms where one company was suing another, and it was really soul crushing and not at all fulfilling in any real way. So my hope is if I went back to being a lawyer, had this career not worked out, I would have been something that felt like it was good for society. There is another
Julie, you're frozen.
Oh my God. Okay.
No.
Am I still frozen?
No, you're good now. But everything you said was not. I did not.
Okay. What I said was not that interesting, so it doesn't matter. I'm so annoyed. There's another version of me where I'm a therapist. The problem with that is I feel too much, so I think I'd be a terrible therapist. But I do like listening to people. So
right, that's the writer part, right? So okay, when you're in Starbucks and there's a couple arguing, are you eavesdropping?
Oh, of course. Are you kidding? That's like my dream.
It's basically.
Like when people talk about like what secret superpower would you love? I would love to be invisible.
Oh my God. Okay.
Like, then you can actually see people and I also want to see people alone, right? Like really alone. Because I am alone right now and it gets weird over here. And wouldn't it be cool to see like the sloppy, like the humanness of humans?
Oh my God. David and I argue about this all the time because the question for people in the audience who don't know is like, if you could choose between flight or invisibility as your superpower, which would you choose? And people always say flight and people say sneaky. And I say, I do not care because I would absolutely choose invisibility every time because then you can understand or maybe try to understand the human condition. I mean, I want to know. People, I'm a terrible person.
So now you're cutting in and out for me, and I don't know if it's me or you.
Oh, gosh.
Is this just like we're in a weird program and it just is glitchy, perhaps?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's an internet thing, but
Okay.
I mean, I'm hardlined in, so usually that's okay. I am not using my Wi-Fi.
Oh, aren't you fancy?
David sets it out. Literally.
Okay, so she's sitting next to the router. So it's probably me. I'm probably the problem here.
Any other genres question, but I know you have a middle grade, so why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, so my middle grade is called the Area 51 Files, and it's about a girl who goes to live with her uncle after her grandmother goes into assisted living, only to find out that he lives in Area 51, and he is the head of the Federal Bureau of Alien Investigations. And Area 51 has lots and lots and lots of aliens. And fart puns. And I'm frozen, aren't I?
I'm so sorry to report. Can you just say what it's about again?
Okay, should I move again? Maybe we should see how dirty my kitchen is. Hold on. Right. Maybe this is better on this side of the table. Okay.
Okay. All right. So say what it's about again.
Okay. So it is the story of a girl who goes to live with her uncle after her grandmother goes into assisted living. And when she gets there, she finds out, to her surprise, that her uncle is the head of, her uncle lives in Area 51 and is the head of the Federal Bureau of Alien Investigations. And it turns out in Area 51, there are lots and lots of aliens. So she goes to Area 51 Middle School with all these aliens and ends up solving mysteries with her best friend, Elvis, who happens to be an alien from the planet Galzoria.
Awesome.
And it's so fun. It has brought me so much joy during this pandemic, and it's full of like just utter silliness. I mean, it's like, you know, when you write books, there's all these different sides of you that come out in the books, right? Like you're asking about humor before. And I feel like my adult books and my YA and this middle grade all play up of different parts of who I am. And this one has been playing in the pure, like silly joy space. Like,
I mean,
pure space.
You lit up when I asked you about that, Julie. I have to tell you. And I will tell you that my little girl lit up because she got her, you're so kind, you sent her a copy today, and she beamed. And like, it's my reward for finishing her homework in a decent hour.
Oh, okay.
Like she gets to read it. She's really thrilled.
I love it because, first of all, it was really fun and I wrote it for my kids. And so my kids will get to read it. I mean, Lily's reading my YA now, but Luca hasn't been able to read my stuff. And so he gets to read it, first of all. Second of all, I got to play in that really fun space, imagining kids reading with their parents, where there's a few jokes in there that are just for the parents.
Yeah.
And those are really fun. And then also, like, I really just love ridiculous dad joke puns. It's like stuffed to the gills with dad joke puns.
All right, I'm totally gonna read it too. Maybe I'll read it with her. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. But I'm very excited about You're on Fire, which we are here to discuss. And I would hold it up if I was not on the other side of the room.
You're killing me. Okay. I'm going to ask you the dreaded advice question. Do you have advice?
Oh my God, you froze.
Julie?
All right, I'm back, but you froze. What was the question? Advice for who? What? Writers?
For writers just starting out.
Okay. I always have a piece of advice and I forgot what it is. Oh my God. I know. I have a pat answer to this question because I get it asked all the time, but I blanked on it for a minute, but I'm going to give you the pat answer because it's a good one. Read everything. And I think like the most important part of being a writer is not just reading, but reading critically, especially for those of us who don't get to go to school to get an MFA or study English. I feel like books provide an education in how to write. And when you read, you don't just read for fun, but you read critically. And when a book sings for you, you sit back and think, why is this book singing? If a book doesn't work for you, you sit back and say, why does it not work for me? If you end a chapter desperate to turn to the next chapter, ask yourself why. What is the writer doing here? Because it's all there on the page to tell you, right? Like we have all these roadmaps. And I'm not saying you should read a book and ever copy how someone else writes, but learning the craft through reading is the way to then you learn the rules. And then from there, when you create your own art, you can break the rules, but at least you're breaking the rules consciously as opposed to accidentally.
Yeah. And I do think there's like an instinct that gets built up if you read a lot, right? Like I read so much that I can just feel when I've done the wrong thing in a story, and I can't pinpoint it necessarily, but I read an insane amount. And so I do think you can build up that layer of like just story sense. And then the thing that I always say to people too is just, you know, all the stuff that you try to hide, all the weird stuff about you, that's the stuff that's good. Don't hide that stuff. That's the good stuff, right? Because if I
fly.
Right, make your freak flag fly. Exactly, right? Because if you got 50 people in a room and you give them one idea, you'll get 50 different stories, right? Because it's just not the same. So put all the weird, wonderful stuff about you into your story. Don't hide that stuff because then it's all the same, right?
Yep. And the weird thought that you figure that no one else has ever had, if you throw that in your work, it turns out lots of people have had it and felt weird about it. And if they love to see themselves on the page.
Yeah. And you go, oh my God, I feel like that too. And it's a nice feeling.
Yep. But I totally agree with you about sort of this subconscious story sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an outliner at all. And I find when I'm writing, there's a natural sort of arc that happens that I think has only been built up just by reading good work.
Yeah.
That does it naturally. And then you sort of learn how to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You learn where to start the story. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I will say too that I think that people talk about writing as an art, and it absolutely is, but there is the craft, and it does require practice, right? That thing I always say, it's a muscle, and it needs exercise. You got to write. Like, to be a writer, you have to write. So I'm not saying write every day, but you do actually have to do the work. I mean, for me, like, I need consistency. Otherwise, I just, like, so 5 days a week is good for me. Other people write for 6 weeks. I have one friend who writes in 6 weeks chunks, and she finishes a novel and then she takes off. I know, it's a real problem.
6 weeks. I can see 6 weeks making a really dirty draft, like a really dirty draft, but like, wow, I don't work that fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I wrote one book that fast, and it will never happen again.
Yeah. I mean, every once in a while, there's that flash of lightning, right? Where it just is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Or what's the expression? Lightning in a bottle? It's not flash of lightning.
In a bottle. No, but flash of lightning too works too.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm not sure if we're supposed to take questions now, or I'm just going to go on to the Proust questionnaire a little bit, Julie. So, give me a number between 1 and 35, and I'll ask you a question.
14.
Okay. If everyone doesn't know what the Proust questionnaire is, it's Marcel Proust, the French essayist, philosopher, novelist. And he didn't actually come up with the game, but he popularized the question list. Okay, so number 14. Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Fuck. It's an evening program. I'm allowed to do that. Right? This is not a middle grade panel. Right? But it's true. Like I have a potty mouth, and in my writing, the word "just" is a real issue for me. I use "just" as a placeholder and almost as like a pause that adds rhythm to my sentences. And at the time, they sound better. But then when you have a "just" every 5 sentences, it's terrible. So that's a real tick I have. There's a few. Really is another word.
I do.
Oh, we're frozen again.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Hello.
Hi.
Are you here, guys? It's me, Julie.
I must increase my bust, Julie.
Have you read that recently, by the way?
What? Say it again.
Reread "Are You There, God?" It's me, Mark, recently.
I have not. Why? Is it?
Should I need to read it, especially with Penny. Like Penny's coming up to the age. Yes, you should absolutely reread it. It holds up.
Does it? Oh, good. Oh, good. I thought you were going to say it doesn't. I was like, oh no.
I mean, there's a few things that I like. I would edit, but for the most part, it holds up.
Okay. All right. Give me another number between 1 and 35.
32.
Julie, did you choose a number?
32. 32.
Okay. 1 and 35.
32. Do you hear me now?
Yes, I heard you. Okay. What do you most dislike?
A lack of empathy. Oh my God, we're frozen again. I don't know what to do.
I don't know either.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to turn off my internet and turn it back on.
Hello? Julie? Oh dear. Melissa, are you there? tell? How would I know?
Here. You want to see if you're on Ethernet?
Yeah.
Anything silly?
It freezes a lot. It's really difficult.
Network. Yes. Let me turn off the Wi-Fi. Okay. Okay. Okay, you're connected.
Hello.
Everyone. Sorry for all of the electronic disturbances. I don't actually know what's happening because you're hardwired and Julie has full bars and I have full bars and our program is showing me full bars, and it's just, this is why we need in-person events.
Yes, it is. I'm not sure if Julie, maybe I'll text Julie and to see if she's trying to get back in.
She said she was going to turn it off and turn it back on again. So as soon as she comes back into the broadcast studio, she'll be a little thing for me to pop back onto the stream. But
okay, she's saying her computer restarted right now.
Oh no. Well, while we're waiting, I would love to know what's next for you and when the next book from your imprint, Joy Revolution, is coming out. And here's but I still want to know. I'm here. Sorry. So I had just asked Nicola what was next for her, and what was next coming out from her imprint.
Right. So I have a book coming out this fall with 5 other YA writers. It's the companion novel to Blackout. It's called Whiteout. So that comes out in November with Angie Thomas and Nick Stone, and I'm never going to remember everyone's name, but all the luminaries. And Joy Revolution, our spring list is Spring 23, and we have Talia Hibbert and Emily Howard.
You have Talia Hibbert?
Yeah, I know.
YA?
She wrote YA for us, and it's brilliant.
I'm so excited.
It's so funny.
You know what? You kept that very secret because you and I have discussed before how much we like Talia Hibbert.
Yes, I mean, I wasn't trying to keep it a secret. I probably just forgot to say, but her young adult is brilliant. You know how funny she is? She's just funny, and she's so good with this getting to the heart of everything just right away. And her YA is just like that. And then we have Emily Howard, a book called Queen Bee, which is like a YA Bridgerton. And it's like Count of Monte Cristo meets like Gossip Girls. And it's like revenge and pulpy and like romantic and like big dresses, and it's great.
That sounds amazing. I'm so excited for all of that.
Me too. Julie.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. If anyone's still with us, I'm so sorry.
No, there are still people on the stream. We do not have any questions. So when you all run out of questions, I will do our traditional this or that. And yeah.
All right, Julie, you want to do a couple more from the past questionnaire? Julie?
I am not frozen again, am I?
Yeah.
I got all these texts. I got all these texts that it's not me, that it's you who's freezing. I'm just going to tell you, Nikki.
Oh, really? Sorry.
I don't know if it's true, though. Anyhow, whatever. I'm here. But that does mean that when I think I'm frozen, everyone is seeing my very weird reactions, which is a problem. But that's okay.
Oh, okay.
It adds to the charm.
Yeah, right.
All right. So a couple more?
Yes. Let's do it.
Okay. Let's see. Choose a number, 1 to 35.
We never did 32, did we? Did we do 32?
Oh, what you most dislike?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah. The thing I dislike most in this world is a lack of empathy. And I think we can find the cause of every single problem in this world and direct it to a lack of empathy and not understanding other people's human condition.
I mean, I think it's like one of those words that people throw around a lot too, like empathy, and not realizing how hard it is to actually be empathetic. You know, it's like really take yourself and put yourself into someone else's life and like, you know, just try to live in that world. I think books help with empathy, you know, like that's why I feel like books are really good for the world, like more books, because it's hard to hate someone after you spent like 400 pages in their point of view, right?
I mean, I do think that is what probably the most important skill of a writer is to have empathy,
Yeah.
because you have to understand your characters no matter who they are and how terrible they are as people. You have to understand the motivation, otherwise it doesn't work on the page.
Yeah, it's like the whole job. Like, I mean, you got to be empathetic.
Yeah.
We do have an audience question. Kayla would like to know if you have a favorite character in Year of Fire.
Oh, my favorite character is the character that I think is everyone else's least favorite. There's a character named Paige who is essential to the book. And she is a super type A perfectionist, hardcore in everything she does. Complicated. And she's very complicated. And she gets more and more complicated the more you get into the book. But she is a teenager dealing with her own appetites for life, and also a numbness that comes along with sort of having too much feeling. And I find her really fascinating. I would never want to be her, but I really enjoyed living with her in her head for a little while.
Is there a character in the book you would want to be?
So there's a character, Ro, who is somewhat based on my husband. He's a really cute,
very charming, so charming,
really cute British Indian boy. And in my head, he looks just like my husband. And we often talk about how we wish we knew each other when we were younger. This was sort of a way for me to just like spend time with him as a young lad. I don't think Ro is who he was at 17. I think Ro is more who he is now. I think at 17, he wasn't as, I don't know, maybe he was as self-possessed as Ro. I don't know. I'm about to put down my husband, which isn't fair. I don't know. I didn't know him at 17. It was really fun to go back and sort of hang out with him. And so I'd like to go step into his brain. I mean, that's the most interesting thing. I'm sure you feel this way too, Nikki. Like marriage is so weird because you live with someone and you spend all this time with them, and yet you really don't know what they're thinking. Like we really truly do not have access to the insides of other people's brains. And that is a terrifying thought. And so I would love to just step into his brain for a minute. That thing, I read an article a few years ago about how not everyone thinks in words.
Yeah.
I have an inner voice that I hear constantly.
I do.
And and my husband doesn't think that way. He has a totally different way of thinking. And my daughter too has a whole different way of thinking. And once I discovered that, it like blew my mind. It really blew my mind. Like, who is this person? How could you not think the same exact way I do? Which I guess is a question of empathy, right?
Right.
Bring it full circle. But I know the question was, what is my favorite character? But the point is, or what character would I like to be? The point is, I would like to be that character because I would like to have access to my husband's thoughts, whether he's 17 or his current age.
I mean, it's the problem of communication, right? Like you just can never, ever say what you mean. Do you know what I mean? It's like the description of a tree versus a tree, right? Like it's the Magritte problem, right? This is not a pipe. And it's with writing and it's with people. Like you can never, as much as I know my husband, you're right, I'm not in his head. As much as I'd like to be in there directing things sometimes, it's just not going to happen, right?
I mean, I think that's why we want to be invisible, to see what we don't see.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, never mind. I had a thought and then I lost it, but it was going to bring it all full circle again.
Well, right. Do you want to wrap up with some rapid fire this or that questions?
Sure. I'm ready, Melissa. Bring it on.
All right. So they're all high school themed since your book takes place in high school. So the first one is, during Spirit Week, were you all like an extravaganza or were you too cool for school?
Too cool for school, but not because I was cool. Too cool for school because I was too insecure to go all in.
Right. Too shy for school.
Yeah.
Too shy for school.
That's yeah, I hear that. Me too. Senior skip day or senior prank day? Senior or neither if your school didn't do either.
I don't know if I think we did a skip day. We definitely didn't do a prank day. I do love a good prank. But back then I would not have done it in school because I would have been very worried about my future because I was very, I was very, very focused on getting out of my town and going to college. Like that's all I wanted was to get out. And so I would have done nothing to threaten that.
Nothing to jeopardize that?
Nothing.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Prom with friends or prom with date?
I did go to prom with a date. Yeah, I know. Maybe I went with some friends at some point, but yeah, I went to senior prom with a date.
I went to see Les Miserables in New York with a friend. No one asked me to prom. No one
Oh,
asked.
I would have gone with you, Nikki.
Les Mis was great. It was so good.
All right. And finally, read all the classics or Cliff Notes all the way?
Hybrid. Now, in high school, I read most of the books. I did in college accidentally pick War and Peace for a presentation, not realizing it was the longest book ever written. And I only got like halfway through and then just, wrote a paper and presentation just on the first half, thinking that the teacher probably hadn't read the whole thing either. And I was right.
My book that I can never, and I have tried to get through, is Moby Dick.
That's mine too.
I hate it so much.
Is it your great big whale?
Yes. Oh, and it's a book that my husband loves because he discovered it in college and he's read it a few times. And I'm like, what is it about dudes in this book?
Oh, it's terrible.
I will tell both of you that I am not very highbrow in my reading generally. Depends. I go through phases. I will go through a phase of reading really wonderful and fun literature, and I go through a phase of reading which Melissa, you're responsible for recently. You're like, we're not going there, Julie.
I feel like I know what book you're talking about.
We're not talking about anything. Not nothing.
Well, I hope that you find some way to celebrate tomorrow. Maybe get some cake.
Okay.
Maybe
open some internet.
Champagne. Yeah, that would be good too. Because I love this book. I thought this book was so wonderful. I read it a second time on audiobook. It was so great to revisit the characters another time. And I just loved getting to do this, even though somebody's internet, all the internets were conspiring against us tonight.
And no ring light. It's not the internet, it's the lack of ring light that I find.
I think that could be it. That could be it.
Yeah. But I made it through. Thank you guys so much.
You did. Yay, congratulations. And thank you all for attending.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.